Hi, welcome to this course. This course is titled Bayesian Data Analysis for Behavioral Sciences. This course is primarily designed to introduce you to how to do data analysis in the Bayesian framework, especially for experimental data or empirical data from cognitive science experiments or linguistics experiments or maybe some economic survey or some questionnaires, right? So the the main content that we are going to cover in this course would be conceptual framework of how to do Bayesian inference, how to do statistical inference in the Bayesian framework, and then applying the conceptual knowledge of Bayesian inference to analyze experimental data. Right. So this course will be in two parts. First, we will be covering the basic theoretical idea of Bayesian inference, and then we will be taking a lot of examples of experimental data from some of the cognitive science experiments and psycholinguistic experiments, so that we know how to apply it for actual experimental data. So in that part, we'll be doing a lot of regression modeling, hierarchical modeling, and how to do model comparison as well. Right? So what you can expect in this course, what you can expect by the end of this course is uh, how to apply Bayesian inference for your data analysis, how to compare two Bayesian models, and how to construct a Bayesian model out of some verbally stated theory. So I think these three things are very useful set of tools for cognitive science research. What you shouldn't expect is that we go deeper into probability theory or measure theory or Bayesian statistics theory, because this is not a course for mathematical research. This is primarily for cognitive science students who have some idea of statistical inference from frequentist t-test or maybe linear modeling they have done already. So they have some idea of statistical inference from other kind of courses they have done, and they want to apply it for primarily for experimental or behavioral data, right? So that's a brief info I wanted to give about this course. Now the now we start with our basic. We will build step by step to why we require Bayesian inference or statistical inference in the Bayesian framework. So let's suppose you are doing an experiment. Okay, so this experiment is actually an acceptability judgment task. Okay, this is one of the classic psycholinguistic experiment. What happens in this experiment is that the participant sees a sentence on the computer screen. So for example, sentence is this: the key to the cabinets, okay, key to the cabinets are rusty. Okay, so they see this sentence on the screen, and their task is to judge whether this sentence is grammatically acceptable or not, whether it's an acceptable sentence in English or not, right? So they will give a response using yes or no. Basically, they will press one of the keyboard key to say whether it's acceptable or not, right? So for example, left key for yes, right key for no. Okay, so that's the task. Now we will record these responses across trials. So let's say the participant sees 100 of such sentences and they respond with either yes or no each time. So we'll be recording these responses one by one. Now our goal, or in fact the goal of a statistical inference is this: that given these observed responses of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, right? Trial by trial, you would see yes, no, yes, yes, no, like this. Our goal is to figure out what is the true mechanism, what is the true generative process that is producing these observations. Okay, so what we are seeking is the true generative process. So what is the true generative process in the human mind? In this case, it would be true cognitive process in the human mind, which is producing the observations that you are seeing in this experiment. Okay, So our goal is to infer the properties of this true generative process, okay, just by looking at this data. Right? But how do we do this? We don't know anything at all about this true generative process, right? In this situation, what we do, we make a fundamental assumption that there must be some function f, okay, which is producing the observations you are seeing, right? And if we can infer the properties of this function f, we can by extension infer the properties of the true generative process. So we make this particular assumption about the true generative process. So remember, you do not know the truth, you do not know the true generative process, but you can still make some assumptions about how this true generative process might look like. Okay, so let's say you assume that the true generative process is f. Okay, now using the data, you would infer the properties of this function f, and by extension infer the properties of true generative process. So that's the one of the key goal of statistical inference, that we are estimating this function f. But there is a problem here, because you are making this assumption f, you might be wrong, right? So someone else can say that, well, your assumption is wrong, a better assumption is g. So let's say an opponent researcher in the field says that the observed data in this experiment is coming from a generative process g, not f. Okay, so these data are produced by g, that's the claim. Now what would you do? So they are competing claims, competing assumptions. So one assumption is that these observations are coming from a generative process f, another one says these are coming from generative process g, right? Well, in this case, given the data, you would compare f and g. Okay, so which one is a better assumption that can better explain this data? So given this data, you need to evaluate which one is a better assumption, which assumption is more likely to generate this data. So that's the end goal of inference. Okay, the first part, where we try to estimate the properties of this function f and g, that is called parameter estimation, because these functions have some sort of argument, some parameters that determine how exactly this function behaves, right? So in the first part, we estimate parameters of these functions, and in the second part of inference, we compare these competing set of assumptions or competing set of processes that can be assumed about the true generative process. Okay, so these things together make the whole workflow of a statistical inference. Okay, first part is called parameter estimation, second part is called model comparison, and we will see how to do it in the Bayesian framework. We do it in the frequentist framework as well. So if you have some background in t-test or linear modeling in the frequentist framework, then you would know that, well, every time we are doing t-test, we are calculating sample mean, we are calculating observed t-value. So we are doing some sort of parameter estimation, and then we are comparing the observed t-value against critical t-values. So basically then we are doing then we are comparing competing assumptions, because one assumption there is the null hypothesis, another assumption is what we have observed in the actual data, and then you're comparing those two. So that's the basic that remains constant across whatever framework of statistical inference you choose. You always need to make some assumptions about the true generative process, and then evaluate those assumptions given the data, whether it's a better assumption than the other, and then basically you can make a claim that, well, this f is likely to generate this observed data compared to g. So that's the basic idea behind statistical inference. Now before we go into this whole process of how to do this inference in the Bayesian framework, we need to understand certain concepts, that what is exactly this function f. Okay, what is exactly we mean by saying parameter estimation, and how exactly we do model comparison. Okay, in order to understand what are these assumptions f and g, okay, we need to understand some basic concepts of sets, probability, and random variables. That will be the second part of this lecture. So I will start with sets because that would form the basic of understanding probability as well. So you might have some knowledge of sets from your high school, but still I would review some of the concepts. So simply set is a collection of elements, right? So for example, set A, it's a collection of elements 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, but there are certain properties. So for example, the order doesn't matter. So for example, this set 1, 3, 5, 7, it's same as 1, 5, 3, 7. I just changed the order, okay, but it doesn't matter. They both are same set. So set is basically a collection of certain elements. So the collection remains the same. So it's not necessarily ordered, right? Second, you can repeat elements. So even if you write 1, 1, 3, 5, 7, it is still a set containing 4 elements. 1, 3, 5, 7. Doesn't matter if one is repeated, it's still a set containing 4 elements, right? Now there are certain statements you can make that 1 belongs to A or 1 is an element of set A. Okay. Similarly, 3 is an element of set A. Is 4 an element of set A? No, right? So we write 4 is not an element of set A. So you can make these statements. Apart from numbers, you can also think of characters or strings, right? They can also make a set. Now, there are very interesting properties of sets. Some of them you might know, but let us review them. You can actually figure out union of two sets. So let's say there is a set A which has elements 1, 3, 5, 7. We represent, notice that we represent sets inside curly brackets, right? So we write all the elements inside curly brackets. Let us take another set B which has elements 3, 4, 7. Okay, so these are two sets. Now you can find out the union of sets A and B, which is basically a set which contains elements which belong either to set A or to set B. Okay, so it could be any element that belongs either to set A or set B, or it could belong to both as well, right? So what are the elements that belong to either set A or set B? 1 is there because 1 belongs to set A. 2 does not belong to any, so you cannot write 2. 3 belongs to both of them, so 3 would be a part of this set. 5 belongs to A. Oh, before 5 there is also 4 which belongs to B, then 5 and then 7. So this is A union B. You can represent it using a Venn diagram as well. How to represent it using a Venn diagram? So let's say this square represents the set of all, let's say, all natural numbers. Then set A is somewhere here which contains 1, 3, 7, 5, right? And there is another set B which contains 3, 4, 7. Right? So these are two sets. Now they have some common area, okay, because 3 and 7 belong to both of them. Now A union B is this entire area covered by either set A or set B, including their common area. So this is A union B. Okay. Similarly, you can find A intersection B. So intersection of two sets. A intersection B. Now A intersection B is a set whose elements belong to both A and B. Okay, a set containing elements which belong to both A and B. Okay, so basically it's a set of common elements of A and B. So what are the common elements of A and B here? 3 and 7. Right? So if you represent it using a Venn diagram, then this is the area which is common between set A and B. So if this is set A and this is set B, then this area is A intersection B. Okay. So these are two basic operations that you can do on sets. You might remember some of them from your high school. Now there are some other operations you can do. You can also find out, let me rewrite set A and B here. So A was 1, 3, 5, 7. Set B was 3, 4, 7. You can also figure out set difference of A and B. Set difference of A and B is basically a set whose elements belong to A but they do not belong to B. So if this is set A and this is set B, so which are the elements, which area is there which belongs to exclusively to set A but does not belong to set B, and this has to be this area. Okay. Basically only this area, because these are the elements which belong to only set A, okay, and not set B. So basically you exclude these common elements. So what are the elements here which belongs to only set A and do not belong to set B? So in this case these would be 1 and 5. Okay. 3 and 7 belong to B, so they won't be part of set difference of A and B. Similarly, you can also find set difference of B and A. Now if I ask you, let us take another set C. Okay, let's say set C is 3, 5. There is a concept called subset. So subset is a set which all the elements of this particular set, if they are found in set A, then we can say that set C is a subset of A, right? So any set C is a subset of A if all the elements of set C also occur in set A. Okay, so in this case, what are the elements of set C? 3 and 5. Do they belong to set A? Yes. So we can say set C is a subset of set A. Okay. So this is called subset. Okay. So if I ask you, what are the possible subsets of set A? Which sets could be possibly subsets of set A? So let me give you a set containing only one element, 1. Can you say that this set is a subset of A? Yes, we can, because 1 lies in A. Right? If I give you a single element set 3, this is also a subset of A. Similarly, 5 is also a subset of A. 7 is also a subset of A. Okay, this is fine. But can you say that, let's say, a set containing 2 elements, 1 and 3, is this a subset of A? Yes, because both 1 and 3 lie in A as well. Similarly, 1, 5 is also a subset of A, right? 1, 7 is also a subset of A, right? Similarly, 3, 5 is also a subset of A, right? So there are many possible subsets of A. Okay. So let us do this exercise. Let us take a set containing, let's say, 3 elements, 1, 3, 5, and let us think of all possible subsets of A, all of them. Okay. So one possible subset is 1, a set containing only 1, set containing only 3, set containing only 5, set containing 1, 3, set containing 3, 5, set containing 1, 5, set containing all 1, 3, 5. Although this is same as A, but it is still subset, because by definition all the elements of this set lies in A as well. And you can think of an empty set as well. So an empty set which does not contain any element would also be a subset of A. So these are all possible subsets of A. Okay. Now a set containing all possible subsets of another set A is called a power set of A. we call it a power set. Basically, it's a set containing all possible subsets. Okay, so this is all we need from sets to understand probability and other concepts on this topic. Okay, so in the next lecture, we will cover basics of probability, 3 axioms of probability, and what is probability all about, and how we would require these concepts from set theory to understand probability. Okay, thank you.